there's nothing wrong with pursuing opportunities. There's a problem if you're an opportunist. There's nothing wrong with people utilizing you or utilizing other people. There's a problem with using people or having people use you. And if you're a giver, you're going to meet takers. And so my whole approach is, I used to not only ignore red flags, I didn't even notice the yellow flags. I didn't even know there were yellow flags. So today, you got to get screwed, betrayed, taken advantage of, hurt, insulted, humiliated, and rejected in order to learn these skills. It's just part of the deal. And so people are like, well, I want to avoid pain. Well, fucking life is filled with pain. Life is filled with struggle. And you're going to be on top of the world some days, and you're going to be down in the dumps at others. So make sure it's that line, be nice to the people you meet on the way up. They're the same people you're going to meet on the way down.
2, 1, 0.
Hi, and welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. This is your host, Orion, and I am so excited to introduce to you the one and only Joe Polish. Joe Polish is a phenomenal human being. He's an extraordinary connector. He pours tons of money to charity. Like, he works with Artists for Addicts, Genius Recovery, JoeVolunteer.com, Virgin Unite. But his interesting life story is coming from a background of being extremely poor and an addict into becoming one of the most connected people in the world. So he's a super cool guy. Joe Polish is the founder of Genius Network, one of the highest level groups in the world for entrepreneurs. He curates the annual Genius Network event, Genius Network and 100K, all three groups being home to some of the most successful entrepreneurs alive, and is considered one of the most influential connectors in the world. Joe has also helped build thousands of businesses and generated hundreds of millions of dollars, even billions, for his clients, and has been featured in Inc., Fortune, Forbes, Success, U.S. News, World Report, among others. Joe also hosts 3 of the top-ranked marketing and business podcasts on iTunes, including I Love Marketing, 10X Talks, and Genius Network. His documentary Connected, The Joe Polish Story, premiered at the historic TLC Chinese Theater, and his documentary Black Star won the Audience Choice Award at the Sedona Film Festival. Joe's mission with entrepreneurs and Genius Network is to build a better entrepreneur, and his heart-driven mission with Genius Recovery is to change the global conversation of people and how they view and treat addicts, and treat them with compassion instead of judgment, and find the best forms of treatments that has efficacy and share those with the world. In this episode, we talked about the best way to market your business, how to become a great connector, addiction recovery, so much. He was so generous with his information, so generous with his time, and I had a blast. I know Joe for a few years now. I've been a part of Genius Network. I still feel like I'm a part of it. I do attend the annual events, and he is such a phenomenal leader and mentor, and somebody I want to become like. There are some people in the world that are leaders, but you're like, oh, they're so great and successful, but I don't really want to be like them. But I would be honored to be, successful, but also hard-driven and creating such a beautiful community as Joe does. And I'm sure I will one day. Baby steps, right? So it started with this podcast. And if you like what will help me get to my personal mission with creating this amazing community, please share the podcast, share it with your friends, and subscribe. And if you can go and give me a review, that will be amazing, because that will help the algorithm help rank this podcast higher, and then I can get to more and more people. And because you're my people, I'm asking for your help. So yeah, share it with the world, and go and give a review on iTunes. That will be phenomenal. So you're gonna enjoy this one. You're in for a wild ride. And now, without further ado, on to the show. Hi, Joe, and welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
It is great to be here, Orion. So thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm so happy you're here because you are an incredible man, great influence in our life, and just overall a really wise person. So everyone that is going to be listening to this are going to benefit a lot. I know that already. No pressure though. So before we begin, can you share with me one of your best childhood memories?
Oh boy, my best childhood memories.
One of them.
It's interesting when you ask that because what comes up is a lot of my initial thing would be like what would be one of the most difficult ones because I certainly have more memory of those than I do of good ones. I would say winning a BMX race, my first race when I was racing BMX bikes. Because I never played sports. I left, I left the little league. I quit little league because I had a sadistic little league coach. So I was never in the sports. So the winning a BMX bike race was the first time I think I ever got a trophy for anything. And so that's one that just immediately comes to mind. Well, it didn't immediately, but it took a few seconds. But I was thinking, okay, what about yeah? So that was cool.
How old you were?
How old was that? I don't know, maybe 13 or 14 or something. So that was
Oh,
not super young, but that
yeah.
was, yeah.
Yeah, I had a difficult childhood too, and I thought, oh my God, all bad memories. When I think about my childhood, like there was so much like more bad than good. And I did 40 years of Zen with Dave Asprey, and
Which I've done with him before.
yes, but for me, what happened was actually a lot of good memories starting to come up. I'm like, oh wow, selective brain. There's not all bad. There were some really beautiful moments there. Um,
It's interesting that you asked that too, because it also goes to show what do I normally think about when I think about my childhood, and I don't always often think about the good things because the bad negative things that were kind of traumatic for me.
right.
Because I have an addiction recovery foundation, I'm often getting asked a lot about, what happened to you in childhood and stuff. But that so the emphasis on positive is good, and it also I just learned something just now that most of the thinking in my childhood is not very good. It's mostly negative, and it's a bit of an exercise here to think about. Yeah, I did have some really good moments, and what were those?
Yeah, and I think just the awareness will bring upon really good memories in your dreams tonight. As you listen to my voice, you will know that tonight you will have really great memories coming to your mind from your childhood that will make you really happy, joyful, and excited.
We'll see. We'll see. I'll wake up tomorrow. I'll be like, today is the last day of the way I used to be. Yes.
Awesome. So share with me a bit about your journey for the people who don't know you. I just like you to share it in your own words, your journey and your passion and who you are in the world today.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, it depends on if I go into personal or business, but I'll try to throw it all together. So it's like a big soup of stuff.
I love
So,
soup.
yeah. So my name is Joe Polish, like nail polish. People often, it's spelled the same way as Polish. That was not our original family name. The original family name from way back when in the 1800s is like Polisi or something. And they changed the name when the family came from Italy to America. And I don't know if they were assigned the name or what even really happened. I've heard all kinds of different stories. But I grew up. I was born in El Paso, Texas. My mother was a former nun, and she left the convent because she had gotten ill. Met my father in church. They ended up getting married and had me, and I have a brother who's 4.5 years older than me, and we moved every year, every 2 years, my entire childhood because initially me and my mother had allergies, and so we moved to like San Antonio, Texas. Then we ended up in a small town called Kerrville, Texas. My mother unfortunately died of ovarian cancer when I was 4 years old,
Oh
and
my
so my,
goodness.
my father was brokenhearted, lost the love of his life, and never could settle down anywhere for long. And so I was a super shy, introverted kid, and I was basically scared of people, and I would smile a lot because that kind of disguised the fear and the angst and anxiety that I had. But I wasn't the sarcastic, sort of kid that like I grew up to be an adult, with a lot of defense mechanisms and whatnot. But I lived in different parts of Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas, and I had some bad childhood experiences. I won't go into detail unless you want me to, but I had a lot of sexual abuse, physical abuse, and so I became a drug addict basically. So throughout high school, I was getting high every day. I started, taking psychedelics, mostly LSD and mushrooms back then, but it wasn't for therapeutic reasons. It was for just trying to escape. And I was taking speed, and I became a cocaine addict, and that led to, in my worst state, I was 18 years old, weighed 105 pounds one week when I had gone like almost an entire week without eating anything. But on
Wow.
average, I weighed about 120 pounds when I was in active addiction. And when you're a male, 18 years old, and you're 5'10", that's pretty damn skinny, right? And
Wow.
so, yeah, so I ended up, I'll give you the short version of it, but I ended up moving away when it had gotten so bad. I looked in the mirror one day and I looked like just a skeleton. I mean, I was just, sunken eyes, and just, I was a total wreck. My life was a total wreck. And I had this thought that if I don't leave, I'm going to be dead. So I moved to New Mexico, lived in a trailer with my father for a couple of years, got sober. It took about 6 months of taking, Tylenol and aspirin. And, I didn't go to a treatment center. I was trying to do this cold turkey. And so I had headaches every day, and I just in such poor physical shape. But I
Mm.
eventually got through it, and I ended up getting a job of all things selling gym memberships. And so for the first time in my life, I started exercising and working out. I mean, I worked out a little bit in high school, but again, I never played any sports. And so I ended up meeting someone after learning how to sell gym memberships and doing really good in Las Cruces, New Mexico. That's where I'd moved to. And, I told everyone I was going to college, which I was, but I was really just, I went there to escape the entire environment of where I was, hanging out with people I was doing drugs with and that sort of stuff. And so I met someone after working at this gym for a while that offered me a job at basically a mental health institution. So I went there and I was a mental health tech. And one of the things that I would do is they would have me drive the people that were there for, addiction to AA meetings, NA meetings. They were outside 12-step meetings, Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous. And I would sit through these meetings as an employee, but not realizing how much of this was going to be beneficial to me in my life. At the time, I was hearing stuff, but it wasn't till later. So I ended up getting sober from drugs, but I never really dealt with the underlying trauma and the emotional issues that caused me to be an addict in the first place. So I came back to Arizona, uh, ended up starting a carpet cleaning business with a friend, and that was a lot of struggle. So for 2 years, I went into debt on credit cards from 1990, approximately 1992. Those were the roughish years of just working really hard, recently getting sober from being a drug addict, just trying to survive. I wasn't making any money. It was costing me more money to be a business owner than I was bringing in. And so I was just searching and studying for what to do. And I had a mentor that I accidentally met. I'll tell you that story in a minute. I just want to put a pause on it to see if there's any questions or anything he has before I just start rambling.
No, no, keep going, Joe. I love listening to you. I always do. So, and the way I love it. Keep going, please.
Yeah, so I was in this carpet cleaning business that I had, and I didn't like it. It was hard work. I'm doing hard manual labor, and on top of that, I wasn't making any money, and I was going deeper in debt, paying for bills on credit card, and I had racked up about $30,000 in credit card debt, which that was a lot of money back then. And today, I mean, I don't even know what that would be today, but it was a lot, especially for a single person business owner trying to figure out what the hell to do. So I had a friend I went to high school with that invited me on a trip to go jet skiing on a Saturday. He called me up. He's like, "Hey, you want to go jet skiing?" I'm like, "Nah, I got so much work to do. I'm busy." he said, well, the guy that owns the jet skis is a multi-million-dollar real estate investor, and that piqued my interest. And so my whole thinking was, let me go to this, jet ski trip and talk to this rich guy, and maybe I could get some advice on how to, make more money, because I was just really struggling. So I drive out in this piece of crap pickup truck that I had to Saguaro Lake, and I'm my friend Pat, and then this guy who had the jet skis, and then his friend, and I never even remember the guy's name. So, and this was years ago, but this was, back in approximately 1990, end of 1991, 1992, something like that. But I think it was probably because I'm trying. One day I'm going to go do a timeline. I'm going to try to find the exact time. But even Pat, who I've not spoken with in years, we couldn't track this guy down, because I've always wanted. I wish I could just say thank you to this guy. But so what ended up happening was, so there's 2 jet skis, there's 4 of us, and I finally had a chance to sit down with this rich guy on the back of a tailgate of a pickup truck, his pickup truck. And so I said, so I hear you do really well in business, and I have a small carpet cleaning company. I've been doing this for a while, and I'm certified, and I do a really good job, but it's a difficult business. And I was wondering if you have any advice on a business that I could maybe go into where I could do really well. And he said, well, are there other people in your industry making money? And I said, yeah, there's a couple of companies in Phoenix that do over $1 million a year. And, back then, to me, that was a lot of money. And he said to me, he goes, well, if there's other people that are doing well in the business you're in and you're not, there's nothing wrong with the business. There's something wrong with you. And I was like, in my mind, I'm like, well, this isn't the freaking motivational speech. I said, well, I'm trained, I'm certified. I don't do bait and switch advertising. A lot of these companies, they're established. They've been in business for a long time. And so I was just telling him what I thought was the reason why I wasn't having success in the business. And he goes, well, young man, he goes, you're like most people. You think the grass is always greener on the other side. And he said, what's going to happen is, if you go into another business, another industry, you're going to spend another 6 months, another year, another 2 years learning the technical skills of another business, so you can go out and repeat the same bad business habits that have caused you to be a failure in this one. And it is interesting too, because I probably had people say something similar to what he had said to me, but it for some reason, that whole line, when the student's ready, the teacher appears, I just heard it, and I was like, he was just saying something that he wasn't being nice about it, but he wasn't being a jerk. I knew he was coming from a trying to help me place, but it wasn't what I wanted to hear, but it was what I needed to hear. And so he said, what you need to do is you need to just learn fundamental business skills. He goes, if you learn how to make a business work, you can go into any other industry, and you're going to have a better chance of success. But if you don't, you're going to keep repeating these bad habits. And so I was like, okay, and I left that trip, and I was really sunburnt, and I drove home, but I was thinking the whole time that, I've got a lot of personal problems. I'm not the brightest guy in the world. I'm a hard worker, though, and I'm trying to make this thing work, and I've been at it for a while, and there's other people that are doing well, and I'm not, and I got to figure out what the hell they're doing. So I made a commitment in my mind where I was not going to get out of the carpet cleaning business. So I went on that trip looking for an escape hatch. I left saying, I'm not going to get out of this until I'm going to use it as a lab rat experiment. I'm going to use my carpet cleaning business as a way to figure out how to make a business work. Now, I still didn't have any answers on how I was going to do that. What happened, though, is I changed my mind. And I will often say to people, I was doing the Genius Network annual event, the one we did the most recent one in December of last year. And I started out saying, how many of you care about your health? A bunch of hands go up. How many care about your families? A bunch of hands go up. How many care about your business? How many of you care about your clients? Everyone's raising their hand. I go, well, who's going to say they don't care about their family, or you don't care about your clients? Of course you care, but there's a difference between caring about something versus being committed. And so, we all care about our health, but that doesn't mean we eat well, or we, drink enough water, or we exercise, or we don't sleep deprive ourselves. So something happened from that conversation that caused me to become committed. There was something that took place in my mind, and I've thought about it a lot since then. But that was the most instrumental conversation I had had up to that point in my life, that what I now call a domino, like the first
Mm.
domino. What is it? Book or a conversation or a person that changes the trajectory of your life in a positive way. Because I had many negative dominoes too. I mean, getting sexually abused created a trajectory of addiction and a bunch of maladaptive ways that I, dealt with my life and dealt with the world. But that jet ski trip was profound. And then I came back, and so all of a sudden I started reading. I started studying. I was like, what the hell do I need to learn that is going to help me with the biggest problem I have, which is I don't have enough business. I don't have enough clients. And so I started studying marketing. And just with that focus, a friend had given me a newsletter written by a crazy copywriter named Gary Halbert. And Gary, you loved or hated the guy. I mean, but I got this newsletter and I started reading it, and it was this I never read anything quite like it. And he said that any problem in the world could be solved with the right sales letter. And I didn't even know what that meant. I didn't even understand what marketing was. I thought marketing was your brand or your name. And there was no internet back then. I mean, there was no social media. This was all space ads, yellow pages, Valpak coupons, postcards, door-to-door sales, telemarketing. There were fax machines, the cell phones weren't even out. They were carrying around pagers and stuff. And I'm, driving around town with what was called a Thomas guide, where it was a manual thing where you would cross-reference streets to find out how to drive across town. There was no GPS. So, there was just a bunch of stuff. And I ended up studying marketing and learning about writing sales copy and making offers. And so today I say, marketing is the quickest path to the sale. Think of selling as influence or persuasion, and think of marketing is storytelling, and selling is what you do to get yourself on the phone or face to face with somebody, and marketing is what you do to get someone on the phone or face to face with you, properly positioned, so by the time you're talking to them, they're you're talking to someone who's pre-interested, pre-motivated, pre-qualified, and predisposed to do business with you. And so I started changing all my messaging. I hired a copywriter for $1,800 on a credit card, because I still wasn't making any money yet, but I was getting these concepts and ideas, and I was like, okay, now how do I execute this stuff? So I taught a copywriter everything I could about how to choose a carpet cleaner, so that we could create an educational guide on how to choose a carpet cleaner. And it was called A Consumer Guide to Carpet Cleaning. And then it was, and I could go through that whole process, because it's a very templatable formula that I've now taught to thousands of business owners. And it's, so I transformed my carpet cleaning business, and I started generating business. And within 6 months, I went from grossing $2,300 a month to over 12,000 a month on it with a single van. And I didn't learn any more about, maybe a little more, but I didn't become a better carpet cleaner. I just became a better communicator, and I became a better communicator in print, not face to face. I learned how to can and clone my messaging. And it's so funny to even say that term today, because now you can do this stuff with AI that just took months to create, that you can create instantaneously if you know the psychology. See, AI I can't teach somebody that in quite the same way as just doing the reps. Like it's sort of similar to, you can't pay someone to do your push-ups for you. AI is not doing anyone's push-ups. So there are certain levels of things that I studied and learned, but I put it into play, and I turned this small business around. And then I started teaching other carpet cleaners how to do the same thing, and then I built the largest training organization in the 90s in the world for carpet and upholstery cleaners and people that do fire and flood restoration in the area of generating business using direct response marketing. So yeah, that's just a little bit of it.
Thank you. That's your story is so amazing. How did you get from being a really successful carpet cleaner to marketer to creating Genius Network, and what is it?
Yeah. So the way that worked is, as I started teaching other cleaning companies how to market themselves using consumer awareness guides, free recorded messages, joint ventures, endorsements, uh, effective sales copy, how to package their services, doing something called a carpet audit instead of an estimate. I came up with offers like a free room of carpet cleaning up to 200 square feet, and we would demonstrate stuff. I created ethical services. So I would teach carpet cleaners how to market themselves, not with the lowest price, but doing the best job. I did 5 different TV shows on anti bait and switch advertising. So I became a big spokesperson to the cleaning industry. And in 1997, I was picked Person of the Year, which was funny. It wasn't something that I did any
That's
PR to try to
amazing.
win. I was like literally chosen. It blew. I was completely surprised that they had asked the whole industry, the largest trade magazine at the time called Clean Facts. Who's the most impactful person in the carpet cleaning industry? And in 1997, like I was chosen from all of these people all over. So I was the most well known person in the world at the time in the carpet cleaning industry, which is funny. I say that never got me dates or anything, but it was really cool for the business. And I never done any general marketing stuff. So I had clients like a guy named Bill Phillips who wrote a book called Body for Life. He had written this book, and I helped him tremendously. It was before that book even came out, which helped him creating that book. And he built the largest sports supplement company in the world. So I was doing consulting with him, and he was doing these physique transformation contests, which I was instrumental in. And I'd given him an idea on how to distribute this film called Body of Work that he had made, and he by donating money to the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and he became the single largest individual contributor in the history of the world for the Make-A-Wish Foundation with the idea that I'd given him. And his company had gone from 60 million a year in revenue to 200 million a year in revenue. And then in 1999, he sold that company for $300 million. And I was his
That's
main
amazing.
marketing guy. And I was teaching him the same stuff that I was teaching carpet and upholstery cleaners. So I learned that, wow, these methods that I have learned are very applicable to any type of industry. But I had never gone outside of niches. I had licensed my marketing materials to auto sales, heating, air conditioning, printers, painters, florists, jewelers, hair and nail salons, pest control side, different licensees that were paying me licensing fees and royalties. And here I was, this young guy making good money, just, good and bad. The good part was I was helping a lot of people. I was selling really good stuff, and it was working. The bad part was I had not yet dealt with the underlying addiction issues. And so I had gotten into a relationship that was very toxic, and there was a ton of betrayal in it. And one of the ways I dealt with it after we broke up is I went deeply into sex addiction, meaning I was acting out sexually. I was hiring escorts, and I was paying for sex. And it was stuff that I never told anyone about because of the shame that was attached to it. But it was, I never dealt with that. So I had been sober from doing drugs. I wasn't going out and getting inebriated. I drink alcohol once in a while. I wasn't an alcoholic, but I had not been abusing drugs. And I was a functional addict, but my addictions were sex and work, because workaholism is the respectable addiction. And so you get a dopamine hit from, like, all forms of addiction are a way to soothe pain. There's that Johann Hari line, which is the opposite of addiction is connection, right? And so I was still very disconnected from myself, and I wanted relationships, but I was betrayed. Going back to there's this line that one of our Genius Network members, Dr. Don Wood, has, where he says, if you understood the atmospheric conditions of somebody's life, it would make sense why they are the way that they are. So,
Yeah, I love Dr. Don. He was on the podcast too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he's great. He's great. And so, I was having financial success, reputational success, but I had this, like, really difficult part of my life that I didn't quite know how to deal with. I didn't know how to go into healthy relationships. I didn't know how to be in a healthy relationship. So, that I was still, you find people's whose dents match your dents. And I had, I had a woman that I had hired who embezzled a bunch of money from me. And, there was this, so there's just a bunch of difficult stuff. I mean, I haven't even gone into most of it. I mean, I don't want to take up all the time with that. I want to share things that'll be, really useful and helpful to people that are listening, for for their lives. So what I did, to go back to the business stuff, I ended up, I never done any non-niche marketing, because there's a lot to be said to be a specialist versus a generalist if you're selling expertise, meaning you can do better if you go after a specific niche like financial services or carpet cleaners, or pick a category, graphic designers, whatever, and versus like, oh, I'm going to be all things to all people. And so there's a company called Nightingale Conant that was the largest seller of audio learning programs at the time. Big company. Now all their materials are licensed to Audible, and they had asked me to do a marketing program. And so in 2004, I created the first, with a guy named Tim Paulson who was working for me. We created a program called Piranha Marketing, the 7 success multiplying factors to dominate any market you enter. And it was the first course that we ever created for the general market that would apply to anybody. And that became the number one selling marketing program of all time for Nightingale Conant, which at the time was the largest audio learning program. They sold, everything from, Tony Robbins tapes to Mother Teresa to Brian Tracy to, you name it. And then, so my program beat everything, guerrilla marketing. It sold more than Seth Godin. It sold more than anyone. And so they sold millions. Yeah, it was cool. It was a great program. People can still buy it to this day on Audible. But it's, we did that in 2004, and that just started transforming people's businesses. I mean, we were getting a bazillion testimonials. People were it was working. And I was teaching education-based marketing, and I would, one of my methods of marketing. And so today, to go, there's my latest book. I got one right here, of course, because I'm a marketer. I'm going to talk about so it's called What's in It. It's called What's in It for Them, right? But the question, even if someone never gets my book, it's always the way that I've operated. People, they care about themselves. Now, empathetic, caring people obviously care about others. However, most people are walking around the world like, well, there's things that I want. There's things that I want. So we all want something. Nobody would even be listening to this or watching this if they didn't want to get insight or whatever it is that they're looking for, right? We're going to want to eat lunch. We're going to want to eat dinner. We're going to want to go to sleep when we're tired. We're going to want to go have entertainment. So humans interact with each other because we all want something from each other. So my whole thing is, how do I make, how do you make your give equal to or greater than your want? Because when I'm going out into the world and interacting, I want something from someone. So what I'll say to people is, well, what do you want? Think about what it is you want, and you're going to interact with somebody that you're going to want something from them. So how do you show up with an energy, with a contribution, with anything where your give is greater than your want? Because the people that we tend to like in our lives are people who show up and they care about, us, and you can feel it. They're not just takers. And so I really, I'm not entitled to anything. Anything that I have in my life comes as a result of, sometimes it's luck. But if I walk around with an entitlement attitude, life doesn't really tend to give me much. If I show up though with, let me figure out how to give more. How do I produce more than I consume? And if I have that sort of attitude and I operate that way with people, my life works better. And so when I was in active addiction, it was always about what's going to make me feel better. What's going to make me feel better? And you know what? Life gives to the giver and takes from the taker. I mean, one of my books is called Life Gives to the Giver. And so I always did that, even with my advertising and marketing. Like my very first sales letter for carpet cleaners was Consumer's Guide to Carpet Cleaning. It said, read this guide and discover 7 questions to ask a carpet cleaner before you invite them into your home. I've got all this in memory. 8 mistakes to avoid when choosing a carpet cleaner. 6 costly misconceptions about carpet cleaning. Crawling critters and crud, a guide to the slime, grime, and livestock that's seeping, creeping, and galloping through your carpet. How to avoid 4 carpet cleaning ripoffs. The difference between value and price. How to get your carpet cleaner to 100% guarantee their work. So that was all on the cover of my Consumer's Guide to Carpet Cleaning, a printed, cheap guide that I would literally mail to people. Or if we went to trade shows, I'd always have them filled up in my van. I would have these little magnetic plastic things that whenever we were doing a cleaning job, I would have it on the outside door of the cleaning van. And if people walked by, they could pull a consumer awareness guide, or they could pull a card where they could request a consumer awareness guide to do lead generation. And so then they would open up the guide and it said, "Dear homeowner, choosing a carpet cleaner isn't easy. Why? Because you're bombarded with confusing claims, simply bad information, near worthless methods, unqualified technicians. How do you ever find a qualified, competent carpet cleaner? You start by reading this guide. Now, with this information, you can make an informed, intelligent decision." And that's what it boils down to. People don't want to make uninformed, idiotic decisions. People don't want to get taken advantage of. People want to feel like, the number one job of a business owner, and I would say a human, is to answer the question, who can I trust? Because everyone has this question in their mind, who can I trust? If you're going to go to a restaurant and you feel like you're going to get food poisoning if you eat the food, you're probably not going to feel comfortable. uh, when you're going to hire anyone, any business, you're going to buy anything, you're going to buy a car, who can I trust? Can I trust this company? Can I trust this person? That's why there's such an emphasis on brands, because certain brands could be trusted. But I think the brand conversation gets taken completely out of context, because you can't deposit name recognition in the bank. All you can do is deposit money. So, most small business owners don't have the ad budget and revenue or the brand of a Apple computers, that would cost millions in order to get to that level. So you have all these people running around trying to, promote a personal brand, but they don't have any substance to what the hell it is that the consumer perceives that they are. So I learned how to establish trust and rapport, because rapport is trust with comfort. So you can build rapport quickly. Trust takes more time. And so what I did with the consumer's guide was I made my advertising valuable. So even if someone never hired my carpet cleaning company, the fact that I'm teaching them, they didn't know there were 7 questions to ask a carpet cleaner. Most people would say, "How much you charge?" Because they didn't know what else to ask. But the moment I said, "Oh, there's 7 questions, or there's 8 mistakes to avoid, there's 6 costly misconceptions, how to avoid 4 ripoffs," all of a sudden I was teaching them what they didn't know that they didn't know. And that is the key for a lot of ways to, you can either be a world-class copywriter that can write the most emotional copy, but most people don't have those skills. And most people wouldn't even know how to prompt an AI to write that for them if they don't understand that psychology is infinitely more important than technology. And so they can't even use the technology if they don't understand the psychology. So what I ended up doing was I created a template, and then I started teaching people to understand why we're doing it this way. I made my advertising valuable. And then most people, they were like, "Wow, if this person's going to teach me all of this stuff, then I probably should use that person." And so I started teaching this to other carpet cleaners, and then I started teaching it to all kinds of other service businesses. Then I started teaching it to the world. And I mean, we can, my
Yeah.
ads and promotions and campaigns have generated several $billion for my clients over the years. But this shit works. And it's just, you don't need to be an expert. You just need to be a caring person that wants to deliver value and be able to package it up and present it to people in a way so that you can become useful. So it's how to be useful. It's how to be valuable. It's how to show up with your give being greater than your want, and operating ethically. And if one does that, I think their life will get a lot easier and a lot better. And so I now call that ELF. You can have an ELF business, which is easy, lucrative, and fun, or you can have a half business, which is hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating. So I try to have ELF versus half. And I used to think of it just as business strategy. Now I think of people. Is this person easy, lucrative, and fun? Or is this person hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating? Sometimes it could be hard, annoying, lucrative, and frustrating, because most people can relate to, "I've made a lot of money, but oh my God, I had to work my ass off in order to," that wasn't ELF. It was half. It was hard, annoying, lucrative, and frustrating. So I try to help people with ELF strategies. I try to utilize, I don't try, I actually do. And when I remember to do it, I put everything through the ELF filter as much as I can.
Right, amazing. Well, I love Genius Network. I was a member for a little while, and my husband is still is, and
Yeah, he's been there
we
for a while.
yeah, it's been for a while, yeah, and I've been coming to the annual events, which was super fun. Great people, big hearts. not only successful people, you are mega smart marketer. And when you're a part of Genius Network, you just notice how hard driven people are, how spiritual people are, how loving they are, because you seem to, they say that the fish stinks from the head, but I guess the dolphin jumps from the head. I don't know. It's like you,
That's true.
your leadership is so beautiful, and you come from a really from a hard place. And I want to talk about all that, but I want to go back to, um, like, a missing piece in your story, where it's like, how did you get over the sex addiction, and what are your practices today to be more balanced with your desire to work a lot, and also, how did you recover, like, why sex addiction is so bad, and how did you recover from it?
Yeah, well, sex addiction is actually one of the most difficult addictions that there is, and it's very similar to like food addiction or even work addiction, because the process addictions or behavior addictions, there's different ways to refer to them. It's there's a term in AA which is put a plug in the jug, where I mean, if you're drinking alcohol or if you're doing cocaine or if you're doing crystal meth or you're taking opiates. I mean, because you're consuming them, you're putting them in your body. Everyone has to eat. Every human desires sexual connection. And so workaholism, I mean, could you imagine not working and not being productive? I mean, people that don't work don't really have often very good lives financially, just even create money in revenue. But it's people need to be productive. I mean, that which is received free of charge is seldom valued. So if people just, I mean, you look at what happens to people that are win the lottery or inherit a lot of money and they don't work. There's tons of addiction with those individuals. Most of them lose the money. Most of them don't have any conception of it. So there's something very powerful about work. So when does it become making your life unmanageable? When does it become, what makes sex good or bad? It's so with sex addiction. Let me define intimacy, which is my favorite definition of intimacy, was taught to me by an 80-year-old gay man who I never met in person, just talked with him over the phone, because he'd been helping a person that I had sponsored in a 12-step group. And he said years ago, he said, intimacy is a mutual exploration of a shared safe place. Abuse is anything that takes away the safe place, and addictions are what we do to make ourselves feel good when we don't have a safe place. So if people don't feel safe in the world, they're going to look for a way to scratch the itch. And so a lot of entrepreneurs could be very wealthy. They could be there could be athletes, professional athletes. I mean, black belts, MMA fighters that can physically hurt and defend themselves in most cases, but they walk around the world with a tremendous amount of not feeling safe. So when you don't feel safe, you're going to look for a way to scratch the itch. If you're depressed or if you're lonely or if you're anxious, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be out of that state. The problem is the mechanism you use to scratch the itch. Is it making your life better or is it making your life worse? So when you ask, how did I get over the sex addiction? Well, let me say it this way. I don't think you get over it. I think what happens is, my view of addiction is that addiction is a solution. It is me and Don Wood, Dr. Don Wood, we first bonded when I gave him what I thought was my definition of addiction. I said it's a solution to pain. And I
Yes.
don't think you can punish pain out of people. And
No, no.
currently we live in a system that punitively treats addiction. Let's take the incarcerated population. So there's a guy who you've met, Andre Norman, big black guy that I've been,
Yeah.
funding for going on 6 years now. And he spent 14 years in maximum security prison. And he was the number 3 gang leader while he was in prison, and just a hardcore dude. I mean, violent, hurt people. And, he became the number 3 gang leader in prison. I mean, managing psychopaths, sociopaths. So, tough dude. And They just made a movie about him too, which is cool. That's going to be coming out soon. But
Wow.
anyway, yeah. So Andre, he had a spiritual awakening while he was in solitary confinement in prison, and just completely changed from being this very violent guy to being just a very loving, caring person. So he got out of prison over 20 years ago, went to Harvard, started just helping people, and he's one of the highest rated speakers at YPO now. He's we helped so many people. He's currently in charge of 650,000 tablets in prisons that have Genius recovery content on it, that have Genius Network entrepreneurial stuff on it. So we're actually reaching people that are incarcerated through the only out they can't get on the internet, but they can download things through these tablets. And we've
Nice.
been taking Genius Network members to prisons here in Arizona before all the meetings, and what we're working on now is wanting to be able to record those basically speeches that our members are giving to the incarcerated women at Perryville prison here in Arizona and other places, and putting them on the tablet so prisoners all over the country can see this, and hopefully one day maybe all over the world, depending on how that works. But the reason I bring that up is that 80 to 90% of everyone that's thrown in jail or goes to prison, drugs or alcohol were involved. That doesn't even include the behavior addictions. Uh, Secondly, 40% of people that are incarcerated have committed a violent crime. So none of what I'm saying is an excuse that for it's okay to because they had an addiction problem, that somehow takes someone off the hook for hurting other people. That's a whole nother separate conversation. The point is, though, there's a lot of addicts that are in jail. There's a lot of people with mental illness that are in jail. There's a lot of people that do bad things, not because they're horrible people. They just have had a lot of pain and difficulty in their life. I just recently interviewed here at one of our 100K groups, Marilyn Murray, who's 87 years old. She was the first woman to bring women's female support groups to Arizona. She was raped when she was 8 years old by a group of military men.
Oh my
And
God.
she's the first woman to ever go into prisons and literally consult and help rapists, child molesters, and sex offenders, which is almost unheard of, someone that was raped themselves. And she, during the interview, which we're going to put out my interview with her soon, um, she went through the criteria of every person that has become a rapist, what happened to them in their lives. And not that this is an excuse to make it okay, because believe me, there's horrible things that people do to other people that damages, ruins their lives. The thing is, though, it gets carried on. And so
Mm.
most people that are out there hurting people had horrible lives, and they were abused, and so it's very difficult thing. So the reason I bring all this up is that we live in a society that has a hard time having a compassionate perspective towards when people screw up their lives.
There's so much judgment, especially online, like even for the littlest things. It's become like like I feel better than you because I'm judging you type of things. Like people get some kind of a relief when they feel that others are less than them. Like it makes their life look bigger and better.
Right, right. Yeah, a lot of envy, and it's trained. People are literally programmed. I mean, they are programmed to have a perspective and see a certain. I mean, they think this is their own thoughts. When you're getting thousands of perspectives every week through, if you're on any sort of social media, if you're hooked into any algorithm, the algorithm is designed to program you. And so what happens is, you take internet addiction, porn addiction, gambling addiction. I mean, it's a constant dopamine hit. Like there's a great
Right.
book by my friend, Dr. Anna Lemke, who's a addiction doctor at Stanford, who wrote a book called Dopamine Nation. So my understanding of addiction, and here's what's funny. The more I learn about marketing, and I have spent over $2 million in 3 decades of my life studying marketing, the more I learn about it, the more I realize I don't know. The more I learn about addiction, the more I realize there's so many layers to it, right? Even though I know more
Um,
than the average bear, and I've helped a lot of people, I'm constantly trying to, like, what do I not know? What is it? what else is out there that actually helps. And so I believe that addiction is caused by two things. It's caused by trauma. It's a response to trauma. It is a solution to pain. So as long as I manage my life in a functional way, sleep, uh, connections with other people, being productive, not overworking, drinking water, getting sunshine, exercise, healthy food, then my life works. But if my life gets too stressful, I'm going to think about all of the things like drink this booze, eat this food, eat this sugar, start having euphoric recall about sexual experiences that might, feed the carnal desires of the brain, but they're not healthy for you.
Mm.
So all of these, I think addiction is a solution, whereas a lot of people like the war on drugs. Well, the war on drugs is like a war on, it's not the drugs that are the problem. The drugs are actually the solution. The problem is the underlying trauma or the like let's take opiates as an example. So we now are in the United States, over 100,000 people a year are dying from opiate addictions. Most of those opiate addictions are starting with legal opiates, not people buying heroin on the streets or fentanyl. It's actually many of these addicts, they're being prescribed these drugs. A lot of them aren't even addicts. They were injured, they had a surgery, and they got hooked on opiates, and then the availability of it or the overprescriptions of it. And so when I was interviewing, the first time I interviewed Bobby Kennedy Jr., he made this comment where he's, because RFK was a heroin addict for 14 years. After his father was assassinated, from the age of 14 to 28, he was a heroin addict. He's now been in recovery. This year, he's been in recovery for 40 years, and he's gone to thousands probably of 12-step groups. And so he said, we have two Vietnams every year in America. So there was over 50,000 soldiers that died that were killed during Vietnam. And he said, we now have two of those every year in America. Every 11 days, we lose as many people from overdoses as we lost in 9/11. So this is a
Wow.
massive problem. So, yeah. If you could imagine a 737 plane crashing every single day, that's how many people are dying every day in America. If there was a plane crash every single day, you would hear nothing else on the way. You'd hear politics and all the divisiveness
Yeah.
and everything, but that would be it'd be everywhere. But you don't hear about it. Why? Because there's shame. People, they try to hide it. And so so it's a big problem. So one of my things is I want to take my marketing skills and hopefully utilize it in the area of and I shouldn't say hopefully, because we're working hard, we're doing a lot of stuff, and my goal is to help change the global conversation about how people view and treat addicts with compassion instead of judgment, and find the best forms of treatment that have efficacy and share it with the world. And so one of the ways that I work on my recovery is helping other people. I mean,
Yes.
people will say very nice things to me and say, you're doing great work in recovery. And I appreciate that, because it feels good when people, say nice things to you. I also want to say that it's not because I'm some philanthropic angel. It actually helps me in my recovery. I mean, when you are in a position where you're having difficulty and you start being helpful to other people, and I hear incredibly sad stories almost daily. People share things with me because of this, because of Genius Recovery, and
And also because of who you are, because you emanate this non-judgmental caring, like I've been there, I see you, so people feel more open to talk to you and connect with you. And then you have to have the burden of listening to all these sad stories. How do you set boundaries when you hear all the sad stories?
well, yeah, here's what I was going to say to it. Yeah, certainly I have to not internalize it, right? And I have to listen and be present to the best of my abilities, because there are sometimes when I'm like, wow, that was really heavy, and it's really, it can really weigh on you, because I am pretty empathetic. I mean, I do
Yes.
feel pain of other people, which is why I want to try to, you know, help people with pain, right? I hate seeing people in pain. I mean, even when I was in school, if I saw someone sitting at lunch by themselves, I'd try to go sit with them. And I was a super shy kid. That was difficult to do. I was not a very physically strong kid. So I would get picked on a lot. And if I saw people that were fighting, unless I was going to get hurt or something, I would try to break up the fight. I don't like seeing people hurt each other. And so there's always been this thing like, try to take away pain, try to, interrupt pain. So it does help me though. Like it's in a weird way, uh, it gives me perspective. And whenever, because I have a tendency to wake up and not feel very good. I mean, I have to work to feel gratitude. I have to, not that I don't, because I certainly do. I just, oftentimes I can get caught up in like, oh, I want this, I want that. There's that side of me that's like, oh yeah, I want to have all this cool stuff in my life, and I think I'm cool, and it helps center me. It helps give me perspective of, don't let the ego, because the ego is necessary. I mean, the ego, used in the right way, is a protective mechanism. It allows you to not get taken advantage of. Ego used in the wrong way, where you're just thinking about yourself, you can just become an arrogant asshole. And so,
Mhm.
doing the addiction recovery work really helps my recovery. And I tell people all the time, if you think your life sucks, or it does, let's say you're in a time where you're just, things are not working. I mean, you're not making any money. You've gone through a betrayal. You have people close to you that are dying. You're dealing with some illness. You're very depressed. If you can drag yourself into a children's hospital, a homeless shelter, an animal shelter, if you can go volunteer, if you can go to a recovery center, if you can step foot in a 12-step meeting, it is amazing how you instantly feel better when you put yourself of service helping other people that are having a difficult time in their life. And I believe, and thank you for the nice things you say about Genius Network and the environment. I mean, it's really, I learned that in recovery rooms that you can take people that have done pretty awful shit and they become better human beings if there's an environment of people that are sharing experience, strength, and hope, and are trying to be helpful to each other. And then it takes on a life of its own. So that's all I try to do. I try to create a connection network, because that's what I'm about. If there's one word that encapsulates what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to connect other people with ideas and with other relationships so that they can connect better with themselves. Because it's really hard to connect with other people if you're disconnected from yourself. Like in my book, What's in It for Them, most people buy it because they want to learn, how do you meet people? What do you say? How do you develop relationships? How do you, get to know the right people? How do you interact? And certainly I do my best to try to deliver that. But the underlying message, though, is connect with yourself. Because if you can become more connected
That's
with
so strong.
yourself,
So strong.
yeah,
Yes.
it's better. That's how you connect with other people. And when I'm disconnected, my life is not working. My life
Mm.
is reacting. When I am connected, though, I'm responding. Which is responding to life, is responding with ability, being responsible. And so, yeah, and that's kind of what I do.
Yeah, and you do it so well. And I wish we had another 10 hours to dive into just that. There's so many topics that I want to talk to you about, and we like you have so much wisdom to share, and I just like, oh, I want to talk to you for longer and hear more and more, because there is a lot.
We go for we go a little longer if you need to. That's fine.
Oh yeah, okay, let's do it. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, cool. So let's dive into how to become a better connector. I'll tell you, I'm really good with one or two people, like keeping connection with one or two people, and I don't know how to connect the way my husband connects. He's a really good connector. He's got like files in his brain where he remembers everyone, and he knows how to connect everyone and bring them together. So, how can someone like me be more like you in a way of connecting to more people and fueling that connection? Because I know there is a lot of work going into fueling that connection, which I don't do. It's just like they didn't text me for a year. I'm just gonna forget about it, you know?
Well, so part of it is, okay. Here's what I would say. So I have a friend who passed away. He's one of my dear friends, Dave Kekich, and Dave spent half of his life in a wheelchair. He
Mm,
had all of the trappings of material success when he was in his mid 30s. In the 1970s, he had become a millionaire. He had a house in Huntington Beach. He was in great physical shape. He told me that back in the 70s, you could jog down, Huntington Beach, Manhattan Beach, and oftentimes you'd barely see anyone else jogging. It wasn't like a big thing back then.
Wow.
And he was working out and lifting weights when lifting weights was not really a big thing back in the 70s, right? There was a few bodybuilders like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Lou Ferrigno and those old school guys, but it wasn't like a bunch of gyms and all that sort of stuff. And he had a weird accident that he got a spinal cord injury. He got a pain in his back, and he went home. And by the time he had gotten home, he was in excruciating pain. And they got him to the hospital, but they didn't have the technology back then to fix the spinal cord injury, and so he was in a wheelchair. He spent 2 years in a wheelchair, traveling around the world trying to find a surgeon, anyone that could fix him. Was not able to do that. And what ended up happening was his business partner stole most of his money. His girlfriend left him, and he was stuck, paralyzed from the chest down, never to be able to have sex again, never be able to walk again. And in spite of that, he became such an amazing human. I mean, he spent most of his life studying spinal cord injuries, and created Life Extension Foundation, and just helped a tremendous amount of people with just living better, healthier lives. Still continue to work out with a rowing type machine. I mean, like, just an incredible guy. And so the reason I bring him up is he had this. He wrote 100 credos, Kekich credos, and one of the credos is lasting happiness does not come from consuming values, but by producing values, and producing more than you consume is the only justification for existence. And so what my brain interprets that to mean is that, who we are is who we are. I can only do what I'm able to do and the skills I'm able to develop. You're who you are, and to go out and meet a bunch of people may be good, it may not. Some people are wired to be extrovert. Like, I'm an introvert who's forced myself to put myself in situations that are uncomfortable. So most people think I'm an extrovert. Most people think I like going out and meeting a bunch of people because I have a lot of relationships. But I'll tell you though, when I go to a cocktail party, it causes a tremendous amount of anxiety. Small talk with people that I don't know, it is not comfortable. I do it.
Small talk is really boring to me.
Yeah. To me, I wouldn't even say it's boring. It's just difficult for me. Like just chatting up people. But I have people that work for me that are infinitely more social than I am, that are really good. It doesn't cause them any sort of anxiety. Now, all that being said, feelings are not facts. Just because you feel uncomfortable, or you feel like you're a loser, or you feel like you're a winner, or you feel like you're confident, or you feel like you have no confidence, doesn't actually mean that your life is working or not working. I mean, it's like, okay, you see an uncomfortable situation. So the thing is you're either moving scared or you're frozen stiff. And so I would rather move scared versus be frozen stiff. And if I find myself getting locked up, it's like, okay, just start talking to the person. Just say something. Just do, and the more you do it, the more comfortable you get. So the thing though, is where most people become uncomfortable with it is they get so caught up in how they think of themselves. Like, how do I look? How are people perceiving me? And believe me, I'm not saying anything that I've not struggled with. I mean, the only reason I wrote, like, if you want to know what someone struggles with, what are they writing books about? What are they talking about? I mean, that's why they do it, so I have a lot of my male friends, mostly male, some women too, that they won't go to a therapist. They won't go to a 12-step group. They won't deal with the hard work. And look, I know you and Stefan have done a tremendous amount of work, so I can speak to you very much
still
about.
Do. It's
Of
like
course,
a layer of an onion; it never ends.
exactly. And so a lot of my friends that won't do the work, what they do instead is they start a podcast, and they and that's better than doing nothing, of course. But a lot of people, they only deal with the surface level stuff, and I'll say, look, read books. I mean, listen to things. There's a tremendous amount. And if you're still really struggling with something, get a mentor, get a therapist, get a coach, get someone that can push you. I mean, like, I don't like going to a personal trainer. I know how to work out, but I pay a personal trainer. Not all, I mean, most of my workouts I do on my own because I've been doing it for many years, but I still pay a personal trainer a couple times a week. And it is freaking hard because I will just put more intensity into my workout with someone that is pushing me than if I don't. But there's also parts of my life where I don't want someone screaming at me. My personal trainer has permission to make me uncomfortable. Other people, I'm not paying them to make me uncomfortable. I'm paying them to make me feel comfortable. So part of it is like, what do you want to solve? Who do you want to meet? Why do you want to meet them? And how do you show up with what's in it for them? And so that is the key. The key for me is if I focus on every human, like I've become more comfortable. Like it's very hard for me at this stage to get so intimidated or starstruck. Not that there's certain people that I admire that I want to make sure I put on a good impression. I don't get caught up in it though anymore because I have sat in rooms with billionaires and famous people, and every human has some area of their life. I believe that they're completely fucked up. They have a lot of pain. They don't know. They're lost. They're broken. And in that brokenness and in that pain is where you can find connection and where you can find support. And so when I think of what's in it for them, and I'm like, okay, how can I be most useful? See, a lot of people like, hey, let's collaborate. And what they want to do is they want to do a joint venture. That's not a collaboration. A collaboration is where you create or produce something together with someone that you couldn't do without them. That doesn't mean, hey, buy my let's let you know. So a lot of people, there's nothing wrong with pursuing opportunities. There's a problem if you're an opportunist. There's nothing wrong with people utilizing you or utilizing other people. There's a problem with using people or having people use you. And if you're a giver, you're going to meet takers. And so my whole approach is I used to not only ignore red flags, I didn't even notice the yellow flags. I didn't even know there were yellow flags. So today, you got to get screwed, betrayed, taken advantage of, hurt, insulted, humiliated, and rejected in order to learn these skills. It's just part of the deal. And so people are like, well, I want to avoid pain. Well, life is filled with pain. Life is filled with struggle. And you're going to be on top of the world some days, and you're going to be down in the dumps at others. So make sure it's that line, be nice to the people you meet on the way up. They're the same people you're going to meet on the way down. And so don't burn bridges, don't leave scorched earth. And if you just operate, I wish I could just tell young people, do this, and this, and your life is going to work out. And I often say to young people that if I would have known being successful is this much work, I would have stuck with being a loser. Because you have no idea the amount of lies and deception and mistakes and enthusiasms that were put into the wrong people, contributions that you tried to make, but you did it with people that didn't appreciate you. And then people that really loved and adored you and were sometimes the most caring people, you want to chase after the unavailable person, because they're unavailable. And so today I'm like, I just kind of look at things and say, okay, what's in it for them? Always lead first, lead with contribution first. And I test people. I'll send them books. I'll send them articles. I'll give them compliments. I'll be nice, sincere compliments. So there's a big difference between just going and saying something to somebody just to curry favor. So when you're pursuing growth, I think your life will get better. And oftentimes growth, like in a workout, you have to work through the burn. If someone's not worked out for 6 months or a year and you start lifting weights, all of a sudden you're going to be sore as hell the next day. And the reason most people don't continue to exercise is they don't want to work through the burn. So with developing relationships and any skill, you have to work through the burn. But once you do it, you start getting better. It's not that the weights got lighter, you got stronger. It's not that the uncomfortable, anxiety-provoking situation of asking somebody out on a date or asking someone to sit down with you and go through a business proposition or whatever is difficult. You just get better at it. And you get better at it by doing the reps. And you can read about it, you can listen to podcasts about it, but it's not till you get out in the real world and talk with real humans and connect. But if you all humans, I believe, except the sociopaths and the psychopaths and the full blown damaged narcissists, and they're out there. Most humans, almost all of them, want connection. They want
Mm,
the question going deep down inside: am I lovable?
yeah.
Am I lovable? Do I matter? And so if you're coming from that place, it's okay if people reject you. My friend Sean Stevenson, who was my best friend, who unfortunately passed away, he had this line that rejection is God's protection, and it used to annoy me when he would say that. And now I look back and say, like even if you're an atheist, however you want to interpret it, rejection is God's protection. They're all the people in life that don't give us like. There are people that will reject you not because they are rejecting you as a human. They're rejecting whatever you're showing up with. Either they're not ready for it or it's not a right fit.
Oh, it's challenging to them.
Yeah, yeah. And so for me, so the way to get better is I'll tell you that I can go through a bunch of different. I have a bunch of strategies in my book. One of the best of those is to start with the question, what's in it for them? And if you can, if you show up with knowing something about the person, what matters to them, and if you don't know, ask them. You know, what do you need solved? What are you most excited about? If you could wave a magic wand and have something happen.
Yeah. For me, something that you said that really resonated with me today is basically feel the fear and do it anyways. And I love everything you said about rejection because I love to have my life um, soft and cushiony. And right now I'm going through a big challenge in my life, and I'm like, it's a big shift. Um, and I keep complaining to myself about it. And I'm like, no, wait a second. This, like, when it's comfortable, nothing changes in your life. When you're in your like comfortable home, comfortable environment, nothing changes. Everything changes, and everything grow and everything expands when there is a shift happening. When you're dealing with the being uncomfortable, when you're getting out of your comfort zone, when you have to grow. um, and so I thank you for actually, it's almost like your words came at the perfect time, just for me specifically, and I'm sure for everyone that is listening, because you were covering so much good stuff. Um, one last question, and then one last question, and then one more last question. It's just one more. um, as the brilliant marketer that you are, what can bring this podcast to 1 million subscribers?
Well, I guess a couple of things. One, you could pay to have it reach a bunch of people, but to get the ones that would really listen to it and resonate with it, that would be a keep doing it. So for instance, like I would venture to say the reason that you're doing the podcast is because this is probably outside of your comfort zone to do these, asking questions to people, doing all that sort of stuff. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you're going to be, the better you're going to get, right? So
Mm.
keep doing the reps. That's how you do it. You just keep at it. You don't build a great reputation by talking about what you're going to do. You build a great reputation by actually doing something. And The Man in the Arena by Theodore Roosevelt. You ever read that?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
If someone listening to this is not, just do a search online and read Theodore Roosevelt's little speech of the man in the arena. It's fantastic. It's the person that's in there doing it every day. That's one way to do it. The other is to figure out of all the different things that we have said in this podcast, or in any of the podcasts that you want people to listen to. My friend Dean Jackson, who I do the I Love Marketing podcast with, he has this great line: "A compelling offer is 10 times more powerful than a convincing argument." Sharing what being able to present things in a way that is compelling for the listener. Like if they haven't heard the podcast, what do they need to hear about it that's going to compel them to want to listen to it? And
Mm.
and so that's a very if there was an easy way as a marketer to just say to every person that had a business, here's the compelling offer. then I wouldn't be able to make any money in the marketing business, right? Because that's something that requires introspection. It requires to really think through the messaging to what you're doing. It's like, who are the people that are most likely to identify with this, but who are the people that would look at you and be like, she knows what's in it for me, where you're able to frame what is being said here, and you can share, listen to this. And think of my consumer guide to carpet cleaning. I had to figure out how to successfully sell something nobody wants to buy. No one wakes up and says, I hope the cat pisses in the corner today so I can call a carpet cleaner. I hope my husband spills his coffee so we can call a carpet cleaner. I can't wait for my kids to go back to school so I can call a carpet cleaner. Maybe they want that for, but the fact is, I had to figure out how to sell something successfully that nobody wants to buy. So when we have to figure out how to get people to listen to our stuff, consume our products, buy our stuff, for one, you just find the bait that the fish are going to bite at, because only the hungriest fish are going to snap the crappiest bait. And the better we get and the more skilled we get, the better the stuff becomes. There's not, I mean, I love watching comedians that are famous today, their very first comedy shows compared to who they are. And you see just the evolution of skill, like Jerry Seinfeld. If you watch old Jerry Seinfeld, I mean, Jerry's like broken it down. Or the book by Cal Newport, who I've interviewed before for my podcast. He is one of his very first books. He's written a bunch of books, but one of his very first books was called So Good They Can't Ignore You, and that was a
Right.
quote from the comedian Steve Martin. And his whole key is like, how do you become a great comedian? He's like, you got to be so good they can't ignore you, and that is the key, is to keep at it, to where you just become so good. And out of this podcast, as an example, to get 1 million people, like if you were tasked that, because why would I object to you having 1 million people listening to a podcast that I'm on? That would be good PR for me, right? So if you went through this whole freaking podcast that we just recorded, everything that we said, there's probably only a couple of things that I've said that were probably better than if you had to compare what people would find interesting, or like a good quote or a good insight or a good marketing strategy or something valuable, or something I said about addiction recovery, or the definition of intimacy, or the difference between sales and marketing. I'm trying to think of stuff, or the jet ski story that I told. There's a variety of things that are little vignettes of interesting.
But Joe, it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And so
So there is a lot of value in everything that you said, and there is so many, even in the things that were said before. Like, you say it in a completely different way, and it really resonates.
no, thank you. Yeah, well,
But it's not the point of what you were trying to say.
no. You're right in terms of, it isn't what you say; it's how you say it. And it's weird too, because people, like, I don't sit and think of myself as being very articulate. I say and ah. I pause. I don't use proper English. I mean, like, I'm not, I don't have a lot of expansive world knowledge. I have this funny line that I got from Gary Halbert. Like, when God was doling out brains, I got about 98% of my brains on how to design marketing campaigns, and the other 2% on how to run the rest of my life. And so, there's only a handful of things that I'm pretty good at, that I produce results with. But it is like, if someone is developing a relationship with someone, you're absolutely right. Like, you can feel who cares about you and who's just trying to pull the wool over your eyes. And not to naive people. Some people are really good at just bullshitting people. That's one of the unfortunate things. There's a difference between connecting, being a connector, and a connector. A connector is someone that cons people by pretending or acting like they care about them. And that's where you see a lot of politicians, you see a lot of people that are, at very high levels in society, and that they could give a rat's ass about the people, but they're just bullshit artists, right? And so they're when you are able to feel authentically the energy of someone, that usually comes from skill, of just being able to pick up on who someone is. It's not what they say, it's how they say it. And so there's definitely that. And I think every human that is a giver, because, like, one of the things that I want to help protect the givers of the world from the takers by better boundarying themselves Because if you are a giver, the unfortunate thing about being a giver is it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when you will be taken advantage of. And frankly, most people end up finding like my book and things like that after they have been taken advantage of, after they have gotten so frustrated. They're like, you know what? I work my ass off. I'm a caring person. Like, why am I not, how do I do this better? So there's that great Zig Ziglar line, it says you can get anything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want, and I've talked about that, before, where, I'll say that again, is that, you can get anything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want, but only if you pick the right people. Like How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, amazing book. I mean, I highly recommend everyone read that book. And I would have not written my book had it not been for that book. And it's not just about how to win friends and influence people. It's about winning the right friends and influencing the right people. So part of it is don't waste, like chapter 2, I talk about TAMI, time, attention, money, effort, and energy. Those are what we can spend. We can spend our time, we can spend our attention, we can spend our money, we can spend our effort, we can spend our energy. Don't waste your TAMI on people that you're not aligned with. Don't waste your energy on people that, clearly are showing you that they don't care, they're not interested. And also, I'd say this to people too, where there's be the type of person you would always answer the phone for. And if you think about the relationships in your life where someone calls you on the phone or texts you or however they reach out to you, and you get a feeling of woo, like, because what people want is more woo and less ah. All day long, we're like woo, ah. So we pursue woo and we try to avoid ah, right? And so some people represent woo and excitement. Other people are like ah. And I was like, do a test for the next 10 people, today, tomorrow, whatever. How do you feel when you see their name come across the screen of your phone? Or, if you run into them and you're feeling like, because we're either in communication or we're trying to escape. That's how we interact with other people. We're either in communication with them or you're trying to escape. And whenever you're trying to escape, it's either the person represents like they're a taker, or there's something that's off, or there's something internally with ourselves that you just don't feel comfortable for some reason. So even people that want to connect with you and would be good to connect with, it's difficult because there's some sort of internal dialogue or some internal turmoil or some internal something. And so with being the type of person you always want to answer the phone for, the people that we like and admire are usually people that have a give that's greater than their take. And the people that like, and I'll say to people as a warning, if you owe somebody money and they call you up and they're like, and you're like, ooh, they're not the jerk. You need to pay them back the money you owe them. And so it's one of these things to where, I constantly am looking at, there's this Abraham Lincoln line that he's credited with is like, I don't like that person. I need to get to know them better. I think that's how it's said. And there are people that rub me the wrong way, and there are people that I rub the wrong way. And if you get to know most people just a little bit more, you get underneath their pain, you get underneath their struggle, you actually like the people. Now, there are some people, the more I get to know them, the more I actually don't like them because of a difference of value, opinions, or I think they're abusive, or I think they're psychopaths or sociopaths. But for the most part, most humans are just trying to get along. And so part of it is just, feel in the gut. And you're really good at this. I mean, you're really good at this. You're a very empathetic human. And so you just like say, okay, what is it about that person and that they represent? So the 1,000,000 followers, the 10, part of it is it's all a domino effect. You just keep building upon the people that you want to connect with. And through that connection and that deeper connection, you develop a reputation, and the more people know about you. And also what's weird is I don't like fame. I actually really like, there's a side of me that wants people to like me. I want people to think I'm cool, but I also know that that's a total ego status pursuit. So if I focus on status, my life is more empty than if I focus on growth. So people are like, like one of the things we're doing, and then we'll wrap this up. we're putting physical recovery kits in pharmacies all over America this year in September. It's like a first aid kit for recovery, for Genius Recovery, and it's going to be a companion to a recovery program. It's going to help mostly family members and people that have loved ones that are struggling with addiction, and we're going to sell it for the lowest possible price we can in order to produce it and put it in stores. I don't care about making money off of it. It's actually for Genius Recovery. So we have recoverykit.com, and so we haven't put these out yet though at the time that we're having this conversation. And so part of it is like there's a term that I like called cruel optimism, and I can't remember the lady's name who came up with it, but there's a lot of cruel optimism in the world where they make it sound like it's so easy to get rich. It's so easy to lose weight. And when you go out into the world and try to make it sound like it's easier to do than it actually is, it's cruel optimism, because you get people hopeful, but then they're left empty. And hope heals if done in the right context. Hope could be a very damaging thing if you give people false hope. So part of it is walk through the world, never bullshitting or exaggerating or lying or doing stuff. And if you do that for even short periods of time and you stay consistent with that, people tend to like you, people tend to respect you, people tend to appreciate you. And it's not like our goal is to save 20,000 lives a year of the 100,000 plus people that are dying. But I can't just say save 20,000 lives a year. You first got to start with one person. Then you got to do 5. Then you got to do 10. You got to create something that works. And then when you do, it perpetuates, it grows, as does your reputation and things like that. And education is painfully slow, even though we can do amazing things with AI. There's a lot we can't. We want to be, really connected with real humans, and the best way I think to learn how to connect with other people is cut the amount of online shopping you do, even though it's a pain in the ass. Cut it in half. Go to stores. Talk to people. Don't do the self checkout in the store. Talk to an actual person. Be around humans, because we are more connected than we've ever been before in human history, electronically and digitally, but we're more disconnected as humans. So have a pet, have a dog, go meet with people, be in groups, interact. And man, if people do that, not only do I think you can reach a hell of a lot more people in an authentic way, but you just feel better as a human, because we're not.
Right. And when people have healthy connections, then it's much harder to deal with any addiction or even look for an addiction as a solution if you have deep connections with people and with yourself. Absolutely. So Joe, I really appreciate you. You're amazing. Thank you for taking the time to be here and the extra time to be here, and I sharing everything that you shared and from your heart, and just being the magnificent human being that you are.
Thank you. And you're totally welcome. And thank you for being awesome.
I really I have a lot of love for you and a lot of appreciation. Um, where can people find you and get the books and all that good stuff?
Well, there's a bunch of places. You can just type in my name on Joe Polish, like nail polish, Polish. Go to joesfreebook.com. joesfreebook.com. You can download a copy of Life Gives to the Giver, and then you can also see my 3 a week emails that I send out. You can decide to get those or not, and they're not pitches. They're just really good, useful emails, and we try to bond with people. And my book is really good. Life Gives to the Giver. That's a free book. And if you want to get my latest book, What's in It for Them, joepolish.com is my main website. And if someone's struggling with addiction, or you yourself have addiction, we have a great blog at geniusrecovery.org, and you can find links to meetings, videos with all kinds of world-class addiction experts, like Gabor Mate and different people that I've interviewed. And it's an educational platform. And then we will soon have recovery kits that you can also see at Genius Recovery. And that's how to follow me. But joesfreebook.com, I think, is the best place, because people can immediately just start reading the book. It's short chapters and they're really good. And if you don't like that book, then probably won't like the other stuff I do.
Joe, thank you so much.